The story of the great auk is a sad one. This large, flightless bird, once a common sight in the North Atlantic, is now extinct. What went wrong? The great auk story is a potent reminder of the impact humans have on the natural world. By understanding what happened to the great auk, we can strive to prevent similar tragedies from happening again. It teaches us about the interconnectedness of life on Earth and the importance of preserving biodiversity. Every creature, no matter how big or small, plays a role in the delicate balance of our planet. The great auk, also known as the gairfowl, was a remarkable bird. It stood tall, almost 3 feet in height, with a black and white plumage resembling a penguin. This striking bird couldn't fly, but it was a powerful swimmer, perfectly adapted for life in the harsh North Atlantic. They thrived in the cold, often turbulent waters, diving deep to catch fish. Their trusting nature and lack of fear towards humans made them easy targets for hunters and egg collectors. This lack of fear, combined with their limited breeding grounds, made them incredibly vulnerable to human exploitation. The great Auks world was one of stark beauty. They inhabited the rocky, windswept islands scattered across the North Atlantic. These islands, often shrouded in mist and pounded by waves, provided a safe haven for breeding. The Auks were particularly fond of islands like Funk Island, off the coast of Newfoundland, and the Faroe Islands. The rocky shores provided ample nesting sites, and the surrounding waters teemed with fish, their primary food source. Life on these islands was a constant battle against the elements. While they bred on land, the great auk lived most of its life at sea. They were powerful swimmers, using their strong wings to propel themselves through the water with remarkable agility. Their diet consisted mainly of fish, particularly herring, capelin, and sand eels. They were skilled hunters, using their sharp beaks to snatch fish from the water with precision. The auk's ability to dive deep and hold their breath for extended periods gave them a distinct advantage in their environment. The great auk's year followed a predictable rhythm, dictated by the changing seasons and the demands of breeding. As winter loosened its grip on the North Atlantic, the auks would begin to gather on their chosen breeding islands. The arrival of spring signaled the start of the breeding season, a time of great activity and commotion in the auk colonies. The female would lay a single, large egg, which both parents took turns incubating. Once hatched, the chick would be cared for by both parents. They would take turns bringing back food from the sea, regurgitating partially digested fish into the chick's mouth. Despite their size and strength, the great auks possessed a fatal flaw: their lack of fear towards humans. They had evolved in an environment where humans were rare, and they had not yet developed the instinct to flee from these strange, two-legged creatures. This lack of fear, combined with their clumsy gait on land, made them easy targets for hunters. The auks' trusting nature meant they would often allow humans to approach them closely, even allowing themselves to be herded together for slaughter. Their large size and tendency to congregate in large numbers made them irresistible targets for hunters seeking food, feathers, and oil. The story of the great auk and humans begins thousands of years ago. Evidence suggests that early inhabitants of coastal regions like the Neanderthals and later the Vikings hunted these birds. Bones found in ancient campsites tell a tale of early human reliance on the great auk for sustenance. The birds, large and flightless, provided a readily available source of meat and fat, crucial for survival in harsh environments. For these early communities, the great auk was more than just a source of food. Their downy feathers, prized for their warmth, were used to line clothing and bedding. However, the arrival of European explorers in the late 15th and early 16th centuries marked a turning point in the great auk's fate. The arrival of European explorers and settlers in the North Atlantic brought about a dramatic increase in the demand for great auk products. Sailors, drawn by the riches of the New World, viewed the auks as a readily available source of fresh meat during their long voyages. Word of the great auk's abundance reached the shores of Europe, sparking a burgeoning trade in their feathers and oil. The bird's down, exceptionally soft and warm, became a sought-after commodity, used to stuff mattresses, pillows, and quilts. This growing demand had a devastating impact on great auk populations. The once thriving colonies on islands like Funk Island and the Faroe Islands witnessed a sharp decline as hunters, driven by profit, decimated their numbers. The hunting methods employed by European sailors were brutal and efficient. They would land on the breeding islands during the nesting season, when the auks were most vulnerable, clubbing them to death by the thousands. Their lack of fear, once an asset, proved to be their downfall, as they were herded into boats and slaughtered en masse. The scene on these islands, once teeming with life, became a gruesome spectacle. The systematic slaughter of the great auks continued unabated throughout the 17th and 18th centuries. Despite growing concerns about their dwindling numbers, the lure of profit outweighed any ethical considerations. As the 18th century progressed, the demand for great auk feathers reached its peak. The fashion industry, ever eager for new and exotic materials, embraced the luxurious down of the great auk. Hats, muffs, and boas adorned with their feathers became highly sought-after status symbols amongst the European elite. The growing popularity of great auk feathers fueled an even greater demand, driving the birds further towards extinction. Hunters, motivated by the prospect of immense wealth, scoured the North Atlantic, desperate to exploit the last remaining colonies. The once common sight of these magnificent birds, their black and white plumage glinting in the sunlight, became a distant memory. By the early 19th century, the great auk's range had shrunk dramatically. Once found throughout the North Atlantic, they were now restricted to a handful of isolated islands, their numbers reduced to just a few hundred individuals. Even in these last refuges, they were not safe from the relentless pursuit of humans. As the great auk became increasingly rare, their perceived value increased, making them even more desirable to collectors and museums. Expeditions were launched to secure specimens for scientific study and private collections, further decimating the dwindling population. The great auk's fate, sealed by human greed and indifference, serves as a stark reminder of our capacity to alter the natural world. As the 19th century dawned, the great auk's world grew increasingly precarious. The once vast colonies that had thronged the islands of the North Atlantic were reduced to scattered remnants. The relentless pressure of human exploitation had taken its toll, pushing the species closer to the brink. The very qualities that had made the great auk so successful, their lack of fear, their fidelity to their breeding grounds, their tendency to congregate in large numbers, now conspired against them. The decline of the great auk was not a sudden cataclysm, but a slow, agonizing demise. With each passing year, their numbers dwindled, their calls echoing less frequently across the once teeming islands. As the great auk became increasingly rare, their perceived value soared, not for their meat or feathers, but as specimens, coveted by museums and private collectors eager to possess a tangible piece of a vanishing world. Expeditions were mounted, not to study or conserve these magnificent creatures, but to capture them, to kill them, to preserve them as trophies, silent testaments to human folly. The very act of trying to preserve the great auk, to document its existence for posterity, became a contributing factor in its demise. The pursuit of knowledge, often a noble endeavor, transformed into a macabre quest, a race against time to collect as many specimens as possible before they vanished entirely. The great auk, once a symbol of the untamed wilderness, now found itself confined to the sterile confines of a display case, its wings clipped, its spirit extinguished. The boundless ocean that had been its home was reduced to a painted backdrop, a pale imitation of the vastness it had once known. By the early 19th century, the Great Auks' once extensive range had contracted to a few isolated outposts, islands that offered a last refuge from the relentless onslaught of human exploitation. St. Kilda, a remote archipelago off the coast of Scotland, became a sanctuary for the dwindling species, its cliffs and sea stacks providing a semblance of safety. But even here in this remote corner of the North Atlantic, the Great Auk could not escape the reach of human greed. The isolation that had once protected St. Kilda's Great Auk population proved to be a double-edged sword. While it offered some respite from the large-scale hunts that had decimated their numbers elsewhere, it also made them more vulnerable to smaller-scale exploitation. The islands that had once echoed with the calls of countless great auks fell silent, their rocky shores littered with the ghosts of a bygone era. As the 19th century progressed, the plight of the Great Auk began to attract the attention of scientists and naturalists. Expeditions were launched to study the remaining populations, but time was running out. One such expedition, led by Japetus Steenstrup, traveled to Eldey in 1844. Eldey was one of the last refugees of the Great Auk. Their arrival marked a tragic turning point in the Great Auk's saga. Steenstrup and his team, acutely aware of the significance of their discovery, set about observing the Eldey colony, documenting their behavior and collecting specimens, not for display, but for scientific study. They observed the birds nesting, their large, speckled eggs laid precariously on the bare rock, vulnerable to the elements and to predators. They witnessed the parents' dedication to their offspring, taking turns incubating the eggs and caring for their chicks. But their presence on the island, however well-intentioned, had unintended consequences. The news of the Eldey colony's existence spread quickly, reaching the ears of collectors and museum curators eager to acquire their own Great Auk specimens. A macabre race began, a rush to Eldey to claim the last remnants of a dying species. On June 3, 1844, a group of Icelandic fishermen landed on Eldey, their mission not to study or admire the Great Auks, but to capture them. They found a pair of birds, the last known breeding pair in existence, nesting on a secluded ledge. The birds, clumsy on land, were easily captured, their fate sealed by human greed and indifference. The extinction of the Great Auk reverberated across the world, a stark reminder of humanity's capacity to irrevocably alter nature. The once familiar sight of these magnificent birds was gone, replaced by an unsettling silence. Their absence was felt most keenly in the North Atlantic ecosystem, where they had played a vital role for millennia. The Great Auk's fate became a symbol of the fragility of life. The disappearance of the Great Auk highlighted a profound truth, that all living things are interconnected, their fates intertwined in a complex web of relationships. The loss of one species, no matter how seemingly insignificant, can have far-reaching consequences, setting off a chain reaction that can impact entire ecosystems. The North Atlantic, once teeming with great auks, bore witness to this interconnectedness. Their absence created a void in the food chain, leading to shifts in the populations of their prey species. The delicate balance that had existed for millennia, maintained by the intricate dance between predator and prey, was disrupted, the consequences of which continue to reverberate to this day. The extinction of the Great Auk served as a wake-up call, forcing humanity to confront its impact on the natural world. It underscored the importance of biodiversity, the intricate tapestry of life that sustains us all. The loss of each species, like a thread pulled from a tapestry, weakens the entire fabric, making it more susceptible to unraveling. The extinction of the great auk, while a tragedy, sparked a growing awareness of the need for conservation. It forced humanity to confront its role in the decline of species and to acknowledge the devastating consequences of unchecked exploitation. From the ashes of this loss, a new movement emerged, one dedicated to protecting the natural world and preserving its biodiversity for future generations. Pioneering conservationists, inspired by the great Auks' fate, began to advocate for the protection of endangered species and their habitats. They understood that the loss of any species diminished us all, robbing us of the beauty, wonder, and ecological services they provided. They recognized the interconnectedness of life, the delicate balance that sustained the planet, and the urgent need to protect it. Their efforts led to the establishment of national parks, wildlife refuges, and international treaties aimed at protecting endangered species and their habitats. The concept of conservation, once a radical idea, gained traction, becoming a global movement that continues to grow in strength and urgency. The story of the Great Auk is a stark reminder that extinction is forever. Once a species is gone, it is lost to us forever, along with its unique beauty, its role in the ecosystem, and its potential to inspire wonder and awe in future generations. The responsibility to prevent such losses rests squarely on our shoulders. We must learn from the mistakes of the past, from the short-sighted greed and indifference that drove the Great Auk to extinction. We must recognize that we are not separate from nature, but a part of it, our fates inextricably linked to the health and well-being of the planet. We must become stewards of the earth, not its conquerors, using our knowledge, ingenuity, and compassion to protect the web of life that sustains us all. The future of life on Earth, including our own, depends on the choices we make today. We can choose to continue down a path of unsustainable consumption and environmental degradation, or we can choose a different path, one that embraces conservation, sustainability, and a deep respect for the natural world. The legacy we leave behind, for our children and for all those who come after us, hinges on the choices we make today. The tale of the Great Auk is a poignant reminder of the irreversible impact of human actions on the natural world. This flightless giant, once a thriving inhabitant of the North Atlantic, now exists only as skeletal remains, taxidermied specimens in museums, and haunting illustrations in books. They stand as silent witnesses to the consequences of unchecked exploitation, their empty sockets staring blankly at a world that no longer holds their kind. As we marvel at their preserved forms, we are forced to confront the unsettling reality of their absence, the bustling colonies, the comical waddling on land, the effortless grace beneath the waves, all gone. The echoes of their calls, once a symphony of life on windswept islands, are now replaced by the mournful cries of gulls and the relentless crashing of waves against the shore. Their story, however, is not merely a lament for a lost species. It serves as a powerful call to action, urging us to recognize the interconnectedness of all living things and the profound responsibility we bear as stewards of the planet. The Great Auk's extinction, though a tragedy, can be a catalyst for change, inspiring us to forge a more harmonious relationship with the natural world. The legacy we choose to leave for future generations hangs in the balance. Will it be a world where the echoes of extinction continue to reverberate, a symphony of silence replacing the vibrant chorus of life? Or will it be a world where lessons learned from the past pave the way for a brighter future, one where conservation and sustainability are not merely aspirations, but guiding principles? The choice is ours. We can choose to be the generation that breaks the cycle of exploitation, that embraces a more enlightened approach to our relationship with the natural world. We can choose to be the voice for the voiceless, the guardians of biodiversity, the champions of a future where human progress and ecological integrity go hand in hand. The Great Auk may be gone, but their story can be a beacon, guiding us towards a future where extinction is no longer an inevitability, but a choice we refuse to make. It is a future where the lessons learned from their loss inspire us to protect the web of life, ensuring that the symphony of nature continues to resonate for generations to come.